Hey everyone, you're tuning in to the GTM Pack podcast. I'm your host, Justin Dorfman, and today I'm really excited to welcome Natalie Marcotullio, the head of growth and operations at Navattic, to the podcast. Natalie, welcome.
Thanks for having me, and super impressed. You got Marcotullio and you got Navattic down, so
I
10 out of
have
10
to,
for research.
yeah, I have to admit I did practice a little bit, but it was the first guess of how to pronounce it, so I'll at least take that credit.
That's awesome.
Cool. Well, I'm a big fan of Navattic. I've been following you guys for a long time now. And I'm also a big fan of the interactive demo space. So I have a lot of questions that I want to dig into around that. But before we do, I want to learn a little bit more about you. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to lead growth and operations at Navattic.
Yeah, so I've always sort of worked in like sales and marketing startups, always been in startups, small companies, so moving to Navattic was nothing new. And before I joined Navattic, my past company was actually a customer of Navattic, real PLG company, and just having the most frustration with getting our free trials to activate. I feel like I spent years of my time trying to get, redoing the onboarding experience, trying to make importing easier, all these things. And ultimately, I remember one day we were in a leadership meeting and someone said, wow, I wish I just had a way for the prospects to click through the product themselves. And I'd known the Navattic team. I'd kind of helped them out in the early days with some marketing advising. And so when she said that, I was like, oh, I think I have a solution. Long story short, end up using Navattic, loving it. And then once I was an early customer, I reached out to the team and was like, hey, this is great. How can I be a part of this?
That's awesome. I remember as well the first time I saw sort of an interactive demo on a website, and I was like, this is something we have to have. It was just a huge aha moment. So I can definitely relate to your experience as well. So tell us a little bit about your role, right? Head of growth and operations. What exactly does that mean? What do you do on a what does a day in your life or a week in your life look like?
Definitely hard to try to summarize a week, but I'll do my best. I think growth is still kind of a very much a made up title right now in the startup world. So you talk to one person, they do something entirely different than someone else in growth. But I generally break down, let's say, my week into 3 different buckets. So I'd say about 60% of it, it's pretty common and reoccurring marketing tasks. So like SEO, ads, content, then operational things, budgeting, forecast. So just kind of what any marketing leader would do, just keeping the ship running. Then I'd say 30% are net new initiatives or projects I'm taking on for the quarter. So like right now, we're exploring an upsell opportunity. So I'm doing some customer research and just doing overall like go-to-market planning for how we would launch that new upsell. And then 10% is like just like random, meetings, leadership things, random things that come up, Slack messages, all that.
For sure. And I'm assuming your marketing team's not huge, so you're wearing many hats and doing a lot of different things, which is super fun, but also pretty hectic at times. So very, very cool. Well, let's dive a little bit more into Navattic. As I mentioned, I'm a big fan. I love what you guys are doing, but for those that aren't familiar with the company or even the space, maybe you can give us a little bit of an intro to Navattic and what you guys do and what interactive demos are.
Yeah, we describe interactive demos as almost try before you buy experiences for software. So as you mentioned, like if you wanted to go to someone's website, if you were evaluating it and quickly just click through what their product does, very high level. It's not like you're going through an entire free trial or an entire demo environment, really just getting a quick sense of what are those aha moments? What does the UI UX look like? Basically, we enable other software companies to make those interactive demos. Just a quick hands-on way for prospects to get hands-on with your product without necessarily needing to go right into a demo or set anything up in a free trial.
Makes sense. And I remember I was mentioning when I first sort of ran across the concept of interactive demos and how it was a big aha moment. And it sort of was in parallel with learning about PLG, product-led growth. And I've heard a lot of people talk about interactive demos as part of a PLG strategy. So I'd love to hear sort of your perspective. How does a interactive demo fit into a PLG strategy, and what are the various ways that you can leverage an interactive demo to basically drive your PLG strategy?
It's funny, when I first joined, I was a little nervous. I was like, is PLG going to accept us as part of PLG? But so far we were recently on like a list from OpenView about PLG enabled tools. So I think if OpenView gives us the okay, we're part of the PLG sphere. But I'd say there are two main ways that interactive demos can fit into PLG. One is what we've heard customers refer to as PLG Lite before. So if you're entirely sales led and you want to take your first stabs into PLG, but maybe you don't have the engineering resources, maybe your product's really complex to set up. Like we work with a lot of cybersecurity companies, HR tech, fintech, because oftentimes those are the type of softwares that require a lot of admin work to really see value. So maybe one of those two things, or you're just like not ready, like maybe leadership isn't bought into PLG yet. This is sort of that first step where you don't need engineering resources. It's all no code. Marketing can own it and experiment with it and sort of first test out what it's like to have prospects get more hands-on product access and then have leads that come from who've seen your product before. So first way, PLG Lite. Second way is that we're actually seeing PLG companies. I always joke, I say they're trying to be even more PLG by incorporating these interactive demos on their website and actually in their product. So a big use case we've seen popping up, one of our customers, Datadog, what they do is in their free trial, if you go to specific pages, so I think it's on like their securities page, there's two options. It's like, hey, get started playing around with the product or see a guided tour. So actually in the free trial, you can go click in, see a guided tour of what it will look like once you've gone through all the effort of setting up, your actual free trial and kind of get you excited and ready versus sometimes when you launch into an empty free trial state, it's like, oh my God, where do I even start? What do I do? So it's nice to have that guidance kind of teach you how to do it.
Very cool. When I first came across interactive demos, I think I was in a product marketing role, but I've sort of talked to folks in various different roles that have been responsible for implementing interactive demos. So I'm curious, sort of, who's the typical owner of interactive demos when it comes to the main person that you're marketing to or that you're seeking? Is there a target persona, or does it kind of vary across an organization? And since there's so many different use cases and potentially so many different personas involved in the buying process, how do these folks get aligned with making a decision on getting an interactive demo, the use cases that they're going to implement for that interactive demo? Yeah, I'm curious to get your take on that.
Yeah, product marketing is definitely a big one for us. They're sometimes the buyer if it's like a product marketing leader, but often they're the builders. So our biggest builder demographic by far is product marketers, which makes sense. They are very familiar with how to position the product to make it look good, what to say, messaging. They're great at building demos. As far as buyers, and two other big personas are demand gen. So looking to use these maybe on the website, but most likely in ad campaigns, maybe in content, really just looking for ways to sort of boost conversion rates and try out new offers to get basically improve click-through rates and get prospects a little excited, stand out, or growth personas. So they're looking at it for that PLG use case I talked about, or maybe website optimization. As far as getting everyone aligned, so it's usually, at least what we see as marketers, are the buyers, but it's ultimately been, especially if you are a sales-led company, it's generally benefiting sales the most, right? By putting this on your website, you're hopefully getting more leads, more qualified leads who actually understand what they're signing up for, reducing the amount of window shoppers. So usually while it's marketing buying it, they try to also position it to sales of like, okay, we're not replacing your demo. We are not trying to take away leads from your sales team. If anything, if we do this right, this is going to get them more leads and higher quality leads. And at first, sometimes sales is a little scared, but once they start using it, they usually get pretty excited, especially we see BDRs and like AEs picking it up a lot just for like email outreach, for post demo leave behinds. They sort of start naturally adopting it.
That's really interesting. I've struggled in the past when you have sort of one persona that's responsible for buying the product, and then perhaps another persona that you need to get buy-in in order to get adoption, right? I'm curious from a marketer's perspective, how do you market to those two different personas and at those two different stages in the sort of customer journey?
So it's funny, we mostly market to marketers, but part of that is teaching them that like it's okay to bring this up to your sales team. Like sometimes marketers are more scared. They're like, oh, I like this, but the sales they're not gonna like it. And oftentimes we see sales teams naturally adopt it. So part of it is fueling them with case studies, fueling them with examples from other customers of like, look, if you go and build this, like your sales team will probably naturally adopt it and be okay with it. at least for us, we do focus most of our marketing on marketers because we found it's most successful if the marketing team picks it up and builds it. Versus if we market right to sales, suddenly they're responsible for building these demos. We all know sales has a million other things going on besides building demos, and the projects can often get stalled.
For sure. Yeah, I could totally see that. Sales folks, I think they get super excited about these sort of things and they want to use it, but the number one thing in their mind always is the quarterly number, right? And trying to close the deals and get to that finish line. So marketing plays a critical role, I think, in setting the foundation and building that tool set for them to then go to market and use very quickly and easily, right? Without having to invest the time in building. So makes a lot of sense. I guess, fast forward now a couple of years, right, since interactive demos have come on the scene, and it's kind of exploded, right? I'm always blown away, checking out new SaaS products. There's always interactive demos. They seem to be everywhere. I guess the challenge now is less so selling the use case and the value of interactive demos, but teaching people how to stand out, right? And make sure that your interactive demos continue to drive value, because they're different, right? They're not just that standard template sort of interactive demo. You've seen a lot of different interactive demos. I'm sure you've seen a lot of different use cases. Do you have any tips that you can share for how to create an interactive demo that really stands out, or maybe some examples that you have in mind of really creative ways of leveraging interactive demos?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like, you're showing off your product, you want to make sure it looks good and that you're following the best practices. And we hear that all the time from prospects and customers is during the sales cycle, even they'll say like, what are the best practices? What have we seen other customers doing? And it makes sense, right? Like, no one wants, if you're going to show your product on your website, you want to make sure it's in its best light. So what we've seen, biggest thing, and we say this time and time again, keep it short and sweet. The best analogy I have is that this should be an appetizer, not the full meal. So you want to get people excited about your product, excited about a demo. That's the full meal. This should just be like a quick something that really highlights the value versus like a how-to walkthrough of your entire product. So we recommend what we call 5 to about 15 steps, which is probably about 30 seconds to a minute. And within that, make sure you're baking it in other CTAs. So, maybe they've seen 5 screens and they're like, yeah, I'm ready to get started. Give them an option to go book a live demo or jump into your product. Some other big things that really make a difference that we've been seeing a little more of, that's been a lot of fun, is almost storytelling, again, versus that how-to. So I think sometimes people are really tempted to make these like tutorial videos. And the best example I have of that is sometimes customers want to show the login screen. Like, first, log in. That's not really providing much value to the end user, but we're just so accustomed to like, okay, how to. So really try to get out of that how to and instead tell a story. We've seen some stories where, they're explaining the pain point that your specific persona is going through. They'll even call out the person, like, Wendy is having this trouble. Let's go through this demo and see how she solved it using our platform. I think that's really effective because it's also just a little more fun and entertaining. So value focused, storytelling, short. And then as far as some really cool examples, if you want to check them out, recommend going to Dooley's website. I think they have a little like Dooley in action page with a bunch of different tours. Those are kind of good examples of storytelling. They're really short and sweet. They broke it up by feature, so you don't have to go through a long demo to get value. Another one that we always reference is ramps. Theirs just is very clean. It follows our best practices of CTAs, only so many steps, as well as they utilize our checklist feature. So let's say you're an accountant, you only really care about Ramp's accounting functionality. You can just go to that little checklist feature, go straight to the accounting section, not have to go through the entire demo. So that was a long-winded answer. There are a lot of best practices. If people have any follow-ups, I can go into specifics about for different use cases or for like specific industries.
No, that's super helpful, and I think I'm gonna go check out those particular examples that you gave. I think always seeing them live on a company's site, it's always when I'm sort of implementing a new strategy or thinking about going down a new path, I think looking at others and seeing how they're doing it is really interesting. So that's really great advice. I'm also sure that you talked a lot about how interactive demos help with engagement and the various different use cases, but I'm sure that as folks are engaging with interactive demos, you guys are presenting all kinds of data and insights as well, right? So I'm curious what sort of data you're sort of collecting, how are folks using that maybe to improve their interactive demos itself? And then also, how do you measure the performance of an interactive demo? I think we're all familiar with sort of the traditional assets like, ebooks and white papers and things like that. And we have a pretty a good sense of how to measure those, but how do you measure interactive demos as well?
I can start with the measurement piece because how teams are using the data is something I'm really excited about. And actually, I think the biggest value of interactive demos. But as far as measurement, the main things to look out for, and we have this all in app, is drop-off rates. So first and foremost, you want to make sure people are going through most of your demo. And we see about like a 30% completion rate on average, anywhere between like 25 and 40. It's pretty normal. So if you're seeing maybe big areas of drop-off, if you're below those rates, that's when you'd go in and say like, hey, maybe my demo is too long. Maybe there's a point that just like it gets stuck or is a little confusing, the UI, just making those tweaks. And our top customers, they'll go in after they launch a demo about monthly and really look at those drop-off points and say, okay, where are they and how can I improve? So then beyond drop-off rates, you can also look at click-through rates and conversion rates. So as I mentioned, you want to be putting CTAs within the demo itself. Maybe it's taking you, again, to a free trial, live demo, or even like, hey, download this ebook or look at this video. That, again, we typically see about like a 30% click-through rate, 20 to about 35 is the average. So if you're seeing maybe once you fix drop-off rates, that's most important, then go through, maybe you don't have enough CTA points, maybe they're not enticing enough, maybe it's too bottom of funnel, like maybe you're pushing them right to a book a demo and you should try another conversion. So those are the things to measure and then ultimately see and how you can improve. As far as what to do with this data, one thing I'm hearing more and more customers doing, and that's getting me really excited, is this content of almost demo intent data. Like intent data is a big concept. We've all heard about it. I think there is a little bit of bias against it. Maybe we've all been burned by paying too much for an intent platform. But I love this idea because it's really showing you, hey, someone has looked at your product, looked at these specific features. They're probably interested in those features. It feels like almost the most close to understanding what the prospects wants as you can get, even more than, if they download an ebook about the topic or just search for a keyword. So a lot of our customers are using the data they get back from the demo to then inform sales calls and say, hey, this prospect clicked through these sections. We should ask them or like tailor our demo to focus on these features. Or these prospects were really highly engaged. We should do some personalized outbound to them because we know they haven't booked time yet with our team, but they seem like really good fits.
That's awesome. Yeah, I never even thought about that, how you can personalize the follow-up and the outreach based on the actual actions that you're seeing. If they're focusing on specific areas of the product, you can really tailor it to their needs and their interests. Really, really interesting. It sounds like the space has evolved so much so quickly. So I really appreciate you taking the time to kind of give us a look behind the curtain and really understand, how to use these great assets. If folks want to learn more about Navattic or interactive demos, or even follow you and just sort of learn from all the tips and the advice that you put out there on LinkedIn and so on, where's the best place to follow you guys?
Yeah, you mentioned it. Not shockingly, I'm active on LinkedIn. I try to post cool customer examples I see or just different use cases. Also on our LinkedIn page itself, once a week, we'll highlight a new customer. So if you're looking for different customer examples, we also have a customer gallery on our website. So those are the main places, but please feel free to reach out, even if you're not using interactive demos yet or not using us. Still happy to provide any data or examples. I say all the time, I've looked at way too many interactive demos in my life, more than I probably need to. So I'm always happy to share this part of my brain that's taken up by interactive demos with the world.
Well, it's a fun space, and thanks so much for giving us an overview of it and joining us on the GTM Pack podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Justin.